Some love it, some hate it, but every movie star knows that the red carpet ritual is part of their job. And what used to be a place for friendly questions is turning a little more hazardous.
Today we're talking about the psychology of clout chasers and social climbers.
We as a society, since the rise of internet culture, have become more and more obsessed with the idea of fame. In the beginning, people used to be famous for doing things that they actually could do, like their talents, like singing, acting, whatever. And then with the rise of the internet and the rise of reality TV, people slowly started to become famous for just being famous and being well known. And so our obsession with fame grew. So let's just get into the detriments of being famous. So the first thing is a lack of privacy. I don't think I need to explain myself on this one. I really don't. No, I will not be expanding, except I will. Because I feel like the way that the paparazzi and just us in general as the watchers of famous people invade famous people's privacy is so weird. Like, we are always like, I don't know, some people say they signed up for this, but I mean, in reality, they signed up to do something that they loved, and fame was something that came along with it. So in reality, did they really sign up for fame? Not really, unless they did something that was like fame calling without it having any like talent to it. But in any case, the way that we invade people's privacy, like paparazzi taking pictures of people when they walk, people not being able to leave their houses. Let's take, for example, someone like Christopher Evans. We all know that I love this man, which in itself is something that I will be speaking about in the next video, our obsession with famous people. Right now, it's just the obsession with fame and power. So I personally, maybe it's because I don't look hot enough, but I don't ever see pictures of him going out and about doing his thing. And I don't know, I feel like he's someone that the paparazzi would follow a lot, but for some reason he's not. I don't know why that is, but I just feel like it's because he stays inside his home. Why? Because everyone is always following him all the time. And that is probably so not only nerve-wracking and anxiety-inducing, but so tiring. Imagine not being able to take a walk. Phones are the effing bane of my life. I get people photographing me while I'm having dinner. I want to get violent and I can't, he said, adding, they think it's their right to take photos of me, and I find that incredibly intrusive. But every phone has a camera on it, so how do we stop it? We can't. So how would I go into a pub and get a few pints of Guinness and get a bit rowdy and sing a few songs when some T-word is going to film me and put it on the internet? I genuinely don't know what the T-word is. They blanked it out with like dashes, so I don't know what that is. Oh, twat. Okay, sorry. Anyway, I just think that it's really sad that this lack of privacy and lack of being able to do what you want to, and a lot of the celebrities that were speaking about the detriment of fame were speaking about how they couldn't just have a personal life. They can't go for a walk. They can't like have relationships. They can't do anything in general without being like invaded upon. And if you really think about it, like, we don't think that it's normal. I'm not gonna say we think it's normal in the society, but because it's not normal, but it is something that has been normalized, if that makes sense. Like, it's something that we don't even think about. But if you really think about it, like, if you had to go for a walk and someone was always on you about taking your pictures or wanting to take pictures with you, you would also get tired of it. And I just think that that's something that we don't really think about, like how tiring that must actually be. Besides, like, oh my god, people want to take pictures of me, like pose, oh my goodness, I look fabulous. Like, in reality, if you really think about how detrimental, tiring, and anxiety inducing that must be, because then people always also have the pressure to look good. Like that time that Kylie Jenner redid her paparazzi pictures with her looking good instead of her looking normal, because she felt a lot of pressure to look good when she went, I think it was, she was going to a friend's house and she stopped at like a garage station to fill up her car or something like that, and she was in pajamas and she was barefoot. How many of us look when we go to the store? Let's not lie, myself definitely included, because I know for sure I don't look nice when I go to the shops. But in any case, because it's Kylie Jenner, she got backlash, and then she redid a photo shoot, and we were all like, wow, Kylie, so vain. Like, why would you have to redo a photo shoot of you looking normal? But in reality, are we really gonna blame Kylie Jenner when she was getting backlash for looking normal? Like, obviously, if you get that amount of backlash, you're gonna want to look better. You know what I mean? She's gonna want to prove herself, and if she's in the public eye and she always has this pressure to look good and it's her brand to look good, what else do you think she's gonna do? Like, what is the next step? Is her looking good in something that people thought she looked terrible in the day or week before? Like, why are we acting surprised by that? So I'm not a famous person, so I obviously can't say this properly from a famous person's point of view. So Idris Elba says something interesting about the paranoia that famous people feel, and for some reason that makes me think of the sensationalism of famous people and the way that we sensationalize them, and everything that they do is so wow, like we're all awestruck. I'm saying all as a general term. There are people who are not as intrigued by fame and famous people, but there are people who are, and I'm speaking to those people who are. So I'm using we and all as a general societal term, even though it's not inclusive of everybody who isn't. Thank you. So Idris Elba said, sometimes you're not sure what's real or not, especially when it comes to relationships. He lamented, if you're adored by millions, sometimes even on your own front doorstep, you can become paranoid and constantly question, who is he? Who is she? I know I've been guilty of that in the past. Whether or not he's been guilty of that in the past is not what I'm talking about. The fact that he's adored by millions, and that made him a sensation. It sensationalized him, and I think that it inflates anyone, and it will inflate anyone who has so many people who are their fans and constantly telling them that they're good and pumping them up and not really doing anything to deflate them in general. That's going to create a sense about you where you don't even know yourself whether or not the sensationalism is warranted. Like, you just know that you have it and that you are this person and that that's very exciting for you, but is that really real? Like, is that something that you deserve? And whether or not you deserve it, I think that it makes you lose your sense of self and reality. Just looking at notes, I think that it makes you lose your sense of self and reality, and that can be a really dangerous thing to disassociate, so much so to the point where you are constantly a persona that is adored by millions instead of constantly evolving and becoming someone different and becoming more yourself, because that's who you are and that's who you're meant to be. Whereas you're always going to be this person that you have made sure will be sensationalized by people, will be loved by people, and is loved by people. And it's the same kind of thing that happens with child stars. Like, they keep up this persona of them being this childlike thing that we all loved them for when they were on Disney. And even though they've grown out of it, their persona stays the same, and that kind of disconnect between who you are and who you're making yourself out to be for people who adore you can really distort a sense of reality, which is such a dangerous thing that I feel like we don't even emphasize how dangerous it is. Like, disassociation is it's such a terrible and difficult thing to go through, and that's a point that I'll get into in my points about our obsession with becoming famous. But just with famous people who are famous already, that kind of dissociation is just, I can't even imagine how difficult that must be, because even the people around you are people from the industry who are strategically planning out your persona. So it's like, is this really me? Is this not really me? Like, is this person, do they know who I am, or are they also for the persona? And then, like you said, for dating, that paranoia plays into your relationships. And also, it's also like, do you really think that you're that special that like people are gonna like fake not knowing you just so they can get into a relationship with you? I feel like no, but then they are very paranoid about like, are they using me, which I guess is valid, because a lot of people probably would, which is sad, but it probably does happen. So, cancel culture is a double-edged sword, like the word of God, amen. Cancel culture is difficult. And let me just narrow cancel culture down to social issues right now for this example. So, as someone has a platform which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, but this person has a platform And whether or not the person should have a platform is a conversation on its own. Like, not necessarily because they don't deserve it, but just because should we be so much in awe of a certain person that we devote all our time and attention to this person and everything that they have to say? So much so that when an issue is big, like Black Lives Matter, we have to expect people with platforms to speak about it because they have so much of an audience with their devotion and time to that person and what that person says. That's an issue, right? Like, we should be listening to everyone. We should be listening to authorities on the issue. We should be listening to people who are educated on the issue. We should be listening to doctors of psychology on certain issues, and not necessarily famous people who repost the same thing. But we do listen to famous people because they have our attention, because they have a platform, which is the issue. And so that brings up the issue of cancel culture, because these people have a platform where they're not necessarily due the time and attention to have that platform. Does that make sense? If we're speaking about an issue like mental health awareness or Black Lives Matter with someone who is not a Black person, who has never experienced discrimination, and maybe is not a psychologist and has not experienced any mental health issues, right? But they're famous and they have a platform. And also, someone who's famous not experiencing mental health issues is very unlikely with the way that their platforms go and the way that they have to deal with the world and social media. It's unlikely. But anyway, let's just make an example. This person doesn't say anything, so they get cancelled. But then it's also like, or they make a mistake when they say things, or they take too much attention. Like I'm saying, it's a double-edged sword, because they have the time and attention of people, so they should say something. But at the same time, this is not their thing to talk about. So should they even be saying anything? And then it's also like, if they don't say anything, then they get attacked and they get cancelled. But then it's also like, we shouldn't be even paying that much attention to this person. We should be talking to the people who have authorities on the subject matter that we want to be educated on. It's so convoluted and intricate and nuanced, and that's frustrating. But like, is it that nuanced? Because we shouldn't be paying that much attention to someone just because they have talents and like they're nice to look at. Like, yes, it's good to look at them, and yes, they're talented, and it's good to praise them for that, but they shouldn't then become the token person to listen to for every societal issue just because they have talents and a platform. So is that nuanced? But then I feel like with the mistakes and people making mistakes and then being cancelled for them, it is, because they are human beings at the end of the day. They're not perfect. But then it's like, you have a platform, you should be responsible, but it's also like they're human beings and half of them didn't even sign up for the platform. And it's like, can't they just live their life like Craig Daniel said, can he not just go to a pub and sing some songs and get drunk? No, because he has an audience that he needs to be catering for. So it's difficult. It's difficult. The last thing that I want to be speaking about kind of links to the first point about privacy and lack of privacy by audiences and by paparazzi. And this is summed up by Lady Gaga's statement on fame. As soon as I go out in the world, I belong in a way to everyone else. It's legal to follow me. It's legal to stalk me at the beach. I can't call the police and ask them to leave. I take a hard look at the property line and I say, yes, well, you know, if you can't be free out there, I'm going to be free in here. And she says she misses people. I miss, you know, going anywhere and meeting a random person and saying hi and having a conversation about life. I love people. And she can't even do that because people already, again, have a image of her persona that's out there, and they have this expectation of her and this pressure of her, and then she's also being followed, and she doesn't have any privacy, and she can't be a person who experiences life. I feel like there's something so fundamentally human and important about being able to have random conversations and experiences and interactions with people that famous people can't have, which I feel like can stunt your growth emotionally. So I just think that that's just an interesting and terrible and fascinating thing that happens with famous people. So I don't know how to segue after that, but we're gonna be speaking now about the obsession that we have with fame and power and becoming famous and powerful. So I think that the first issue with our obsession with becoming famous and powerful is the way that we begin to take life and the people in our lives for granted. And again, I'm using this us, we, all of us, society generally, because there are people who don't do this and there are people who are very far removed from internet and fame culture and wanting that kind of lifestyle. But the things that I've noticed is that people who want fame, and just we in general, begin to look down on normal jobs, which is an issue. Like, I see a lot of people, and there are famous people who disrespect people who have normal 9-to-5 or weekly wage jobs, service jobs especially. And service jobs are the most integral part of our society. We would be nowhere without service jobs and people who provide for those services that we get, who then, the people that work in those services to provide us with the services, take a shot every time I say services. So I just think that the way that we look down on that is not only really disrespectful and rude and disgusting, but also really sad, because majority of the people in society end up in normal 9-to-5 weekly wage service jobs, because those are the jobs that are in demand, those are the jobs that we need, those are the jobs that are integral to society, and those are the jobs that majority of the people are going to have, because fame, it's a very difficult road to the top, and not everyone is going to get there because the algorithm, it's rigged. It's a rigged way to the top, baby. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's rigged. Like, it's difficult to get there. And so looking down on that is not only really, like I said, disrespectful and disgusting, it's also really depressing, because when you end up in that position, you end up doing everything you can to get gratification from society in the form of being famous. And when you don't get that, it sends you down a rabbit hole of self-hatred and probably also mental health issues, which is just somewhere that you don't ever want to be. And it stops you from falling in love with life and the life that you're living and the people that are around you, because you want to surround yourself with people who will get you to certain places. Like, you want to be a social climber. Your relationships that you have in person are so much more personal and detailed, and just, I want to say romantic, but I don't mean in a romantic way. I mean like in a falling in love with life romantic way, in a romanticized way. Let me say it like that. Yeah, I just think that that is damaging, the way that we teach ourselves not to fall in love with our lives because we're aspiring to have a different life completely and be a different person and have a persona and have an audience and have people that adore us all the time and are obsessed with us and devote their time and attention to us. And that's something that we begin to aspire to, but it's something that we're not all going to reach. And where does that leave you? You know, who are you and what do you become and what do you think of yourself when you're not in a place that you thought you were going to be in or that you aspire to be in, because you find out that it's difficult to get there, or that you're part of the majority of people who are normal. That's the end of this video. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have anything to say, you can say it in the comments. I'd be happy to chat. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a good evening, afternoon, morning, or whatever. Bye.